Hello, this Mystico video, counting down my favorite Hayao Miyazaki films, was sponsored by Anthony over on Patreon. If you want to throw your support and possibly suggest some video ideas of your own, guaranteeing that spot on the schedule, just visit my Patreon. Link is in the description. And now, on with the show. One of the most celebrated animation directors in the world is Hayao Miyazaki, and for incredibly obvious reasons. His work is imaginative, beautiful, takes you to other worlds, and manages to craft stories with themes about our role in nature, while also featuring some of the most well-rounded women leads in cinematic history. You can watch all of his films and get something out of them, and I've definitely seen every single movie more than once over the years, as it's easy to get swept up by them. So let's celebrate this master of animation as he steps out of retirement yet again, as I count down my favorite films of his. And if you're wondering why this is a top 11 list and not my usual top 10, well, it's because he's made 11 features and I felt bad leaving one of them off. And that film is Howl's Moving Castle. It's a credit to what a great filmmaker Miyazaki is that even the film I'm placing at number 11 is still really good. The story of Sophie, a young girl cursed by a witch, become an old lady, has certainly got plenty of the amazing vistas common in his work. However, what sets Howl's Moving Castle apart is that instead of the young girl protagonist that usually populate his films, the main hero is an elderly woman, and it's a celebration of how age can be an advantage, not a detriment. This is a journey for the eyes, with some amazing, wonderful, fantastical sights, my personal favorite being a talking flame. The reason I rank this at the bottom is because, as great as the fantasy elements are, I don't think the war subplot really gels and fits with the central storyline. It makes the film feel a bit too long and is a rare case where Miyazaki's anti-war themes feel like an afterthought in the story he's telling. Nonetheless, I do find a significant amount to appreciate in Howl's Moving Castle. Princess Mononoke. Okay, I'll have some people disappointed I only put Mononoke at number 10. But that's not out of slight of the film, but because Miyazaki has made so many great films that even a movie of this quality is going to rank low. And Mononoke is a film I've come to appreciate more over time. Initially, I did not find Ashitaka to be that interesting a protagonist, but a recent viewing made me realize Princess Mononoke is more a film about many characters, all of their own clear motivations in this battle between people and nature. However, Miyazaki's films are never black and white. Even the so-called villain, Lady Eboshi, has multi-layered motivations and has plenty of good qualities even among her bad ones. The world Miyazaki creates is incredible, with the different beasts and spirit that populate the forest, and each with their own unique appearances and abilities. I've seen this described as the animated equivalent of Lawrence of Arabia, and I would agree with that, as it does have the scope of a David Lean epic. While the final battle may run a little long, I like how we see the multiple viewpoints of this conflict and the different side plots that emerge from their struggles and motivations. It's a film I appreciate more every time I watch it. Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. In many ways, this shares quite a bit in common with Princess Mononoke, with its battle of people versus nature, and yet it still has its own unique qualities that set it apart. Miyazaki seems particularly intent on commenting on man's destructive nature and need for control and fighting each other for ultimately trivial reasons. What Nausicaa does exceptionally well is initially draw you in with beautiful imagery and calming music, which then makes a later destruction and fighting all the more shocking. Nausicaa will be the first of many wonderful women leads in Miyazaki films, and we also see a lot of his love for flying and identification with animals and nature long before we knew they would become trademarks of his work. As a science fiction and fantasy tale, it definitely deserves to be considered a notable work in that genre. Castle in the Sky. A grand adventure with sky pirates, a mysterious floating island, and adorable robots, this is yet another Miyazaki film that just whisks you away. One of a number of his films focus on child protagonists, the relationship between Patsu and Shita is an incredibly sweet one, and the determination they both have for finding the castle in the sky is what Miyazaki ultimately uses to help drive the plot. He also cleverly plays about expectations, especially with the pirates, who end up being quite a lovable band of rogues. We also see his love for classic literature here, with the various allusions cleverly woven into the film. This was Studio Ghibli's first official film production, and what a way to begin, as the animation sparkles in every frame, especially the use of the airships and when we see objects break up. There is a lot to be captivated by in every frame of Castle in the Sky. Poco Rosso. For some reason, this is the Miyazaki film nobody ever seems to talk about, and that's a shame. I think it's his funniest work, as Miyazaki focuses heavily on the comedic dogfights of this man cursed to be a pig. And yet through it all, he also comments on our roles in wartime and what it means to serve. The chemistry between Poco and airplane mechanic Fio is excellent, as their interplay provides a good amount of humor, while on the other side we have the touching relationship between Poco and Madame Gina. Miyazaki also brings a lot of history to the backdrop, showing the rise of fascism in Europe in the early part of the 20th century. It all comes together in a charming, funny, and beautifully written piece of animation, and one I wish was discussed more often among Miyazaki's filmography. The Wind Rises. Taking on the life of airplane designer Jiro Hirakashi, this is an example of how the biopic doesn't have to be a stale recreation of events. It makes one wish more biopics tried going the animation route. Hirakashi is a complicated figure, as he just wanted to design airplanes, and yet they ended up being used for destructive purposes. Miyazaki explores that and the parallels between the beauty of his aircraft and their unfortunate usage quite well. Airplanes are a common fascination of Miyazaki's, and he really uses this film as an opportunity to show why he loves them so much. Mixed with this is a heartwarming love story, albeit a largely fictional one, which makes one feel for Hirakashi all the more. The Wind Rises marked a departure from his fantastical work, but he more than handled the task of making a film set in a realistic world. My Neighbour Totoro. This is one of those films that is just soothing in its innocence, and also an example that plot does not necessarily have to be a requirement for a great film. It mostly revolves around these two girls living in a new home and hanging out with an amazing creature called Totoro. Totoro is not even in a majority of the film, although we still feel his presence. A lot of it really is about the girls and how they entertain themselves. Miyazaki somehow makes even mundane events like cleaning and picking vegetables into something special. Japan is known for its fantastic beasts and mythology, and with this film, Miyazaki managed to create new additions to that mythology who will resonate forever. Who can forget the cat bus, or the scene of Little May lying on top of Totoro's belly? When we do get a high amount of drama in the third act, it's certainly emotional, but in the back of our minds, we know with Toto around, things will come out alright. My Neighbour Totoro really is a sweet, optimistic film that in many ways renders grim and morose films worthless. This is Totoro's power. The Castle of Cagliostro. Hayao Miyazaki's feature directorial debut, because he was leaping into the popular Japanese manga series Lupin III, there is not as much of his personal stamp on this project. Nonetheless, he directs a hilarious and rousing action escapade that's like James Bond mixed with Tintin. The action set pieces are really clever, especially when we enter the titular castle, with one sequence in a clock tower that definitely seems to have influenced the famous Big Ben climax in The Great Mouse Detective. The film is populated with many memorable figures, whether it's the police inspector hot on Lupin's trail, or the crafty burglar Fujiko. Despite not containing as many of his trademarks, Miyazaki's love of the European countryside still appears in full. Miyazaki apparently changed Lupin's personality to be more of an upbeat Robin Hood type, and I think that works to the film's advantage, as one almost wants to join him on these adventures. Even before he became a celebrated name director in his own right, Miyazaki already proved himself an animation master to watch with his first film. Kiki's Delivery Service. You hear about a story about a witch traveling to a new town, and you might expect epic battles, an evil wizard, and the fate of the world where magic is frequent. But, nope. This is just a series of episodes of Kiki making deliveries, and that's a large part of its charm. The only magic she ever uses is her flying skills, and that's enough to buy her as a sorceress in training. The film nicely shows her struggles and her relationship with her sarcastic cat, as also her friendship with a young boy. Like Totoro, it's just really pleasant seeing this girl live her day-to-day life. All the characters she meets in the film leave an impression, and we find ourselves endearing to them the same way Kiki does. We get scenes like Kiki helping two ladies bake a pot pie, and it's riveting. Even the ending is beautifully done, as Miyazaki chooses the appropriate spot to end and leave us with a happy feeling. Ponyo. I think when Hayao Miyazaki made this film, he set out to make the most adorable thing ever. This involves the moon getting out of whack, throwing the world out of balance, and yet everything is so calm and nonchalant and lovely. One of my favorite aspects of Miyazaki's work is that people react to fantastic and unusual events in the most relaxed manner. Oh, that goldfish has turned into a little girl with a taste for ham? Makes sense. The friendship that blossoms between Sosuke and Ponyo is unbelievably sweet, and it's great seeing his wonderful relationship with his mother. When Miyazaki takes you under the sea, we get some of the most wonderful images he's ever created, and it's just amazing watching this film and seeing all of it wash over you. It's just a good-hearted and well-natured film with lovable characters, and in terms of films inspired by The Little Mermaid, this might be the most unique. And my favorite Hayao Miyazaki film is none other than Spirited Away. I keep mentioning how his films succeed at taking you to never-before-seen and imaginative worlds, and the one that is the most brilliant at that is Spirited Away. Part of that is not just the magical creatures that inhabit this unique and inventive bathhouse, but also how we see Chihiro progress throughout the course of the story. In the beginning, she's a bit bratty and stubborn, but Miyazaki still allows us an entryway to sympathize with her. And with each sequence, we see her slowly evolve and change and become a new person with new wishes and a new connection with her parents. None of the set pieces feel superfluous, as each are key character-building moments for Chihiro, and all with their own ideas. Miyazaki never repeats himself in any point in Spirited Away, and he has clearly put a lot of thought into the design of Yubaba's bathhouse. I just love how he takes us through every room and corridor in this place that feels equal parts threatening and amazing. Her growing alliance with Haku is also incredible, and it's great seeing the two connect and help each other. There's a surprise around every corner, and it's also a film that uses visuals triumphantly in telling its story. I could watch this film in the original Japanese without subtitles and still follow along without a problem. Of course, it helps Spirited Away is a film I keep coming back to because there's so much to absorb and take in. I love Spirited Away, and I love many of Hayao Miyazaki's other films. He is an incredible director, and one who has brought us many great animated works I know we will remember and cherish forever. I'd really like to know what your favorite Hayao Miyazaki film is, and I'll see you next time.